Welcome to Crack Talk.
Hey everybody, how you doing? And welcome back to Crack Talk. Got my boy Scott here ready to go today, aren't we?
We are ready to roll.
Yes, sir. And today, boy, do we have a doozy. This entire month of June is dedicated to mental wellness or mental health.
Yes.
So we're going to be going today on we're going to go on a really off topic called PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder.
Yes.
But before we lock that in, Scott, you always like to try to remind all of our followers.
Few things we ask you to do is please like, share, follow, leave us a comment. If you guys feel that the information that we're bringing to you all, if you see value with it, please share it with those. Why we're doing this is to help educate all of you guys out there just about chiropractic and some of the unrelated things,
topics.
That chiropractic has impact on that a lot of people don't really know or have thought of. So that's what we're wanting to do. So please like it, share it, leave us a comment, and let's get ready. Are you ready to jump into this?
Just pay it forward. Pay it forward. Like what I like Scott saying is, there are people, today's topic, PTSD, it's real.
Yeah.
It's real in every family.
Yes.
Digestive problems, real in every family. Sinus and allergy problems, real in every family. We just did the side effects of chiropractic. Absolutely love that episode.
Yeah.
Sleep. There are people in every family not getting high quality of sleep
Right.
and need to know how to get sleep. So what we need to be doing is making sure that you're not just taking this content and getting it for yourself, that you're sharing it with people that are dealing with
I'm actually
things.
I'm actually dealing with this. My sister-in-law right now has been texting me saying, "Hey, I love your guys' podcast." She's trying to get her husband, which my brother, trying to get him to come in, and she is like watching the podcast so she gets ammunition to go to him to say,
perfect.
"Get your butt in there," and I'm like, "Good luck."
See, this is why we
good
do
luck.
it. We want to educate people. Like Scott said, we want to get you all inspired and fired up that you don't have to live with these conditions. You don't have to live a life of persecution, living in purgatory, living in pain, discomfort, whatever label you want to put on it, that you can come out of it without drugs and surgery. And then we want to give you action steps at the end of this that you can take into your life or help somebody take it into their life, actionable steps to help them move from where they are to where they can live a happy, healthier life. So today, PTSD.
Yep.
So let's start with the stats. 3.6 million or 3.6% in the millions of the U.S. population last year were diagnosed with PTSD. I want that to sink in. 3.6% of the United States population last year were diagnosed with PTSD.
Diagnosed, very
okay,
key point.
Adults.
Yep.
5% of children, I call them children, between the age of 13 and 18. That was 5% of children between the age of 13 and 18 were diagnosed with PTSD. They've had some traumatic event in their life that has created mental and emotional anguish.
Yep.
This is serious. And this is what I was really taken back from. More prevalent in women by 3 times than men.
I did not know that stat. When I saw that one, I would have had no clue. I figured it would be the opposite.
Yeah, because the only thing we hear about PTSD is active military.
Yes.
Come back to, let's just be honest with it. The only time people talk about PTSD usually is you go into active military, you go to Iraq, you do some stuff, you see some stuff, you experience some stuff, you come back to the States, and he can't sleep, he's having nightmares, you do all that stuff. That's about, I'm going to tell you the truth for me, that's what I experienced. I started digging into this, and I'm like, this is more prevalent. There are things, rape, bullying, cyberbullying, car accident.
Yeah.
Things that I started reading about that I've never even thought about. Like, wow, this is PTSD. Kids are held in time based on that trauma. Adults are held in time based on trauma. And I realized, men are usually a little bit less emotional about stuff. They don't lock into things as much. Women do. I was raised with 4 sisters, have a great mother, and have a fantastic wife and a daughter. And I will tell you, they hang on to stuff a little bit longer than most men.
What is it? We always laugh and say sometimes you get into those conversations, and then all of a sudden you're like, "Yeah, you remember that one time that you said this?"
No,
about
I don't.
That? And I'm like, "No, I do not remember."
They do.
That.
And you might too. But that's not a problem. It's just, how do you move on from that? So I really, if you're a woman and you're dealing with some PTSD, or you're a man dealing with PTSD, today's message is for you. And if you know somebody that is dealing with PTSD or dealing with the symptoms, which I'm going to get into really quick, Scott, what is PTSD? How does it manifest? If you're knowing somebody that's dealing with this, get them on this podcast, get them searching the internet, get them out there actively pursuing getting this emotional and mental hill traversed and get across it so they can live a happier, healthier life with no mental and no emotional anguish. So PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, how does it manifest? You've seen it in the movies. Anxiety, big one. All right, depression, lack of sleep, lack of appetite, digestive issues, psychosomatic sickness, autoimmune disorders. This is serious because when you start having chronic stress, and we talked about this, Scott, before we start today, you start having chronic stress, that whole fight or flight thing, and you're staying in fight for long periods of time. And I'm telling you what, there are studies done on this. One of the ones I read was at Harvard. They're talking about people are in a state of chronic stress. Or a state of fight.
Yes.
Like a bear is coming at them or a lion is coming at them, and you might feel like this. It might be just your kids, it might be your spouse, it might be the weather, it might be whatever your trigger is based on your traumatic past, right? People are living with more stress right now than they ever have. Can we also agree, we just lived through COVID-19.
Right.
The amount of stress, anxiety, depression, substance abuse, alcohol and drugs that came out of that, I think is the biggest thing that is being kept secret, Scott. I mean, it's just from what happened to COVID. COVID robbed people of hope, robbed people of feeling like they were worthy to live and like they were going to die. And I've never actually had that moment, but you talk to people that have had near-death experiences. That's post-traumatic stress disorder. That's when people have had a chemical shift in their body and now they're housing something that is almost like poison in their body. Right? I know you have some. I know I have some. We've also went to massive amount of seminars. I mean, Scott and I shared going to a Tony Robbins seminar to get work to life path, book reading, mentorship, a psychologist. I've never been to a psychiatrist, but I know it's absolutely effective. Talking to somebody, that's how I have figured out how to kind of get coached through my post-traumatic disorder.
Right, and actually just being able to recognize.
Yes. Well, and I think that sometimes is the biggest thing. When we went to the seminars, people are walking around with stress, anxiety, depression, these chronic illnesses that they can't get rid of. And you might be one of them. I'm going to apologize. If you're one of them, you've been mal-educated possibly on that. You can change that. Right. Just as it happened to you, you can then become the cause of the matter and get over that. But I'm going to tell you this, not easy. Once your brain decides to capture that trauma and store it in your central nervous system, which is your brain and spinal cord. And most people don't know that. All your emotional files, all these things that happen in your body or happen to you emotionally, mentally, physically, or whatever, are stored in your central nervous system.
And I don't think people realize that. What you're saying right there is, and I did not know this till I started going through retracing.
Retracing is a real thing.
In the chiropractic world, there's a thing called retracing. We may touch on it here in a minute, but it is a file cabinet. It keeps that nervous system stores this information, and I know a lot of people because I did not know it until working in the industry.
So I mean, why don't we just talk about it?
Yeah,
so what
let's jump
we get into, I'll lead us right into retracing. So once again, post-traumatic stress disorder. How does that apply to chiropractic? Because they're completely unrelated. We just talked about all the symptoms of. Not all of them, but the majority, the big ones, the symptoms of PTSD. If you're experiencing those, listen up, because you don't have to be dealing with this. And the only opportunity is not medication, and it's definitely not surgery. So what we see in the office, and this is what was probably one of my biggest points in my practice 20 years ago, Scott, not to date myself, is adjusting somebody, and all of a sudden they start bawling their eyes out on the table. Are you hurt? No. What's happening right now? I don't know what's happening. I just felt this entire emotional well up, like this veil came over my body. Well, there have been studies about this as your central nervous system, brain, down your spinal cord, store the files of your trauma. They store the files of good and bad things that happen to you. Then when bad things happen, we all know, Scott, when you get stressed out, your shoulders get tense, your muscles clench, you build up lactic acid, you build spasms. That's another way of storing up emotion. People they say right now, depression, the number one way to relieve depression symptoms is to do what? Go to the gym. Right. Why? It's because depression starts manifesting as fibromyalgia, where you start getting trigger points all over your body because your body is in such a fight state that your muscles are in spasm. You're not fighting anybody, but your brain doesn't know any different. Your mind has tricked your body that you're in a fight. So you're straining all these muscles, building up these pockets of lactic acid that you push on them. Ooh, ow, ooh, ow, ooh, ow. When you adjust somebody that has that kind of condition going on, Scott, it is like, bam! Their body resets, goes into a comfortable state. They immediately go up into a well-up of emotion because now we've had some retracing. They have been storing that kind of energy, that post-traumatic stress disorder energy, that anxiety, that depression, that lack of sleep, the lack of everything. It's been stored right there. We release that. The body now comes back. The nervous system gets back in charge of what's going on, as we already talked about in a lot of these. The nervous system is what controls all the other systems of your body. You can't live without your nervous system. So there it is. In our office, you've heard us say it a million times, the 3 T's. We break everybody's subluxation complex in being attributed to the 3 T's. So how do you get a subluxation, which is a bone that moves left, right, up, down, out of place, putting pressure on the joints and then inflaming the nerve root, causing that central nervous system, brain and spinal cord, not to be able to communicate with what our cell tissue organ is on the end of that, right? What causes that? Well, we all talk trauma is very easy. You got micro and macro traumas, car accidents, or pulling a lever all day, right? Then you have toxins. The food we eat, listen, it ain't getting better from what I found. The fluids we drink. I mean, the amount of Red Bull, Monster, you name it, that is being drank on this planet, coffee, I mean, you name it, the toxins we're putting in our body.
Just the amount of sugar.
You don't even want to get me on that crap. We need to do it on sugar.
There's a whole other podcast.
Because we're going to do sugar next, because sugar is one of the ones that is killing more people than anything. And there's studies that are showing this day in and day out.
And I read a study on this not too long ago. They were talking about the amount, the consumption of sugar is, I guess, what was in the turn of the century, there's more sugar consumed in one day now than there was a year, in a full year back in the early
Everything we eat is high fructose corn syrup, fake sugar, or sugar cane. Or they're putting sugar in it because what does it do? It tantalizes that palate, baby, gets you to want to come back. You know, like the Doritos got sugar. I mean, everything's got sugar in it. But so toxins, right? We're nothing but a big bag of chemicals. So you put a whole bunch of toxins in your body, your muscles are going to start having reactions. You build up that lactic acid from those spasms, boom, out of place. Boom, you have a subluxation. And the last one we always talk about, which is the most dramatic, is thoughts. We always say stress kills. And one of the things that I found in PTSD, and when I started reading, I was like, well, I do a little bit of this or a lot of this, is having the reoccurring moment happening to you like it's happening. You break out in sweats. You wake up with anxiety.
You stated it, sir. Your body doesn't know the difference.
Your fight is turned on.
Yes.
And let me tell you what happens with people like this, and why they often, if they're in PTSD for too long a period of time, they contemplate suicide because their body is completely breaking down. I'm sorry to even know that. But how do we overcome it? Right? So stress kills, right? Thoughts are what create stress. We know PTSD is this reoccurring nightmare for most of us, right? It's building up all this tension like we're fighting a fake battle, but we don't know the difference, Scott.
Well, then doesn't that can also, when you're fighting that, so let's say then you're creating the tenseness, which then can pull those bones out of place, which creates pain.
Well, it can create pain, also can create dysfunction.
Yes.
Which then leads to what I was leading to, the immune disorders, the lupus, the rheumatoid arthritis, where your body starts turning on itself.
Right.
And the reason it's happening is because now I want everybody to listen, when you stay in a fight state, your body doesn't spend any energy on immune system. So what happens is, let's say you're here, you go to a fight state, your immune system's here, you're actually going to decrease your immune capacity immediately in your body. Your heart rate's going to go up, your blood pressure's going to go up because you're in a fight state. Right? And I'm sorry I'm getting a little animated about this because it's just real. And the more I look at it, I was like, my goodness, I've dealt with some of my kids with some PTSD. I can say I have dealt with PTSD in my own life. I know you have. We talked about this. If we're labeling it what all these things are, which is what it is. And the challenge is, if not dealt with, leads to sickness and can lead to death by suicide or death by sickness.
Yeah.
So it has to be addressed. It has to be addressed, and that's why we're talking about it today. So let's get to this. How does chiropractic then apply?
Yeah. How can it benefit this?
Yes, going into the chiropractic office, getting your spine checked. First thing, if you're dealing with PTSD, usually it will manifest years later as like, oh, I got some pain in my back, pain in my neck, pain in my shoulder. You don't have to wait for that. Get into the chiropractor because they will be able to have bones moved out of place, called subluxations, have gross amount of bones in place, moved out of place, called a gross subluxation or an abnormal curvature, or has a curvature been removed from your spine? Both traumatic because it stretches your spinal cord, once again creates a dysfunctional relationship between your central nervous system and your peripheral nervous system. It's telling everything what to do, how to do, and when to do it, right? So by going to the chiropractor and getting checked, we identify you have subluxation.
Right.
Okay, boom. Now, let's get you on a plan of treatment to remove this subluxation. And I'm telling you, if you have an emotional well-up, amen. Because we've gotten into an area of your body where you have stored some negative energy and you possibly can be relieved of that.
I always say there's some junk in there.
Oh,
there's some stuff that needs to be unpacked.
Yeah. And we all got that junk.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe not junk in the trunk, but we all got junk that we store through our body. So by working with a chiropractor, by bringing those bones into place, not only are you increasing your immune capacity, because we've already talked about in one of our podcasts, getting your neck adjusted immediately stimulates your immune system, right? You're also reducing pain. If you're in pain and you're dealing with PTSD, now you're double whammy in it.
Well, start stacking the blocks, as we say.
Yes.
As we were talking about symptoms, lack of sleep, stress, pain,
Yep.
lowered immune system. Now, when you start looking at it, guys, it makes sense when you start bringing in benefits of chiropractic. What is it that we do? We're relieving pain, which we've done a podcast on sleep.
Yep.
So
your quality of sleep increases when you're getting adjusted.
That benefits somebody that could be dealing with PTSD.
Right? We talked about increased body function.
Right.
Increase immune capacity by boosting your immune system. Very important. Because if you're in that chronic state of PTSD, that fight system, your immune system is down.
Yep.
We've got to do everything possible to get it up. Or you've seen people that they're stressed out all the time. What are they?
Sick.
They're chronically ill.
Sick.
They're dealing with colds, seasonal colds. They're dealing with allergies. They're dealing with whatever the new flavor of the year is.
Whatever it is. I got the
And they're always dealing with.
I got a little summer cold.
Well, here in Kentucky, we call it the Kentucky crud because it's a combination of everything.
I got a summer cold. I'm like, I don't know.
And they always have it.
Right.
And we've all dealt with these. And if you're one of those people, you don't have to live like that way. Live like that possibly. You go into the chiropractor and get your spine checked, get it adjusted, get the subluxations, get your body functioning well, get your immune system back up, get out of pain,
and
get your sleep back regulated. Stress reduction is one of the big things. Getting these muscles to release those kind of quote unquote memories.
Yes.
Right? Bring some calm to your body, allowing your body to heal, because we talked about in our sleep one, if you're not getting sleep, you're not going to be able to rejuvenate and revitalize your body.
Yeah, I say it's the stacking blocks. Everything starts stacking on top of each other.
Yeah, so instead of stacking the decks against you, because that's what PTSD will do.
Yes.
That's why it is such a big deal. That's why they say 21 veterans a day commit suicide. Most of them are dealing with anxiety, depression. They're dealing with lack of sleep. They're in chronic pain because of something that's happened. They're dealing with mental and emotional anguish. The only way I know how to deal with mental and emotional anguish is you've got to physically make sure your body is equipped.
Yep. and not doing a medication, because sometimes that even becomes a block that's stacking either other blocks on top of that one.
Well, you've all heard the medication ads. Take this antidepressant. You're going to have 5,500 symptoms that cause all your problems, and then you start taking medication on top of medication. I'm not saying medication's unjust.
No,
I'm just saying it has its time and its place. Often not in this case.
Well, and it comes back to we've talked about it on the podcast before. This is such a simple thing and readily available, and there's zero side effects except positive side effects. So if somebody or you may be dealing with a PTSD or these stressful situations, this is such a simple thing that somebody can go do today.
So here we just did it. This is it. I mean, PTSD, we all know what it is.
Yeah.
Get fired up and inspired that if you're experienced or somebody that you know is they don't have to live like this. And our action steps, I'm going to tell you what, your physical state will dictate your mental and emotional state. What did we learn when we were at the Tony Robbins seminar? Say, get up, start deep breathing, and start changing your physical state. Start jumping around, start clapping your hand, start screaming out loud, because you will immediately change. So if you're dealing with something that heavy, you need to do things like that. The other thing I would say, get into the chiropractor. Get your spine checked. Make sure there's no subluxations that are compromising your body's ability to be well and heal. Get yourself out of pain. Make sure you're dieting properly. Make that you're giving yourself enough food. Because I will tell you this, people that are in pain, chronic pain, chronic stress, they're in fight, no appetite. So what do they end up doing? They binge eat, which then creates a whole nother thing, because when you binge eat, and you're in stress, you got your cortisol spikes up, your digestion slows down, now you have gas, digestive problems. I mean, we could go long ball on that. We already did the one day. But those are your action steps. We want you to experience a higher quality of life if you're dealing with post-traumatic stress disorder. So the first thing is understanding what it is, understanding also that you don't have to live like that, and then implementing simple things in your life that can help you climb the Mount Everest of getting over this thing and getting to the top and living a life you are excited to wake up in the morning to live.
Well, this is a great simple tool that you can have in your tool bag that a lot of people don't know exist. Nobody's ever brought it up and said, hey, have you ever thought about chiropractic for dealing with issues of PTSD? And
we talk about it in the office, but it's not something mainstream. And we just know the power that made the body heals the body, right? So if your body is sick, you've got to make sure your brain and your spine are connected. You also got to make sure your brain and your spine are healthy, right? And they are getting enough sleep, and they are getting enough nutrition and enough hydration.
And you are doing something that helps with that fight, flight, stress.
Yes.
One of the biggest things that I do is with the adjustments when you do neck, and then we do the upper cervical with the atlas and things like that. I tell you can do the adjustment here, and I tell people all the time, it is that veil.
That veil.
I can actually, you can feel it just go. I mean, it is like stress just washes off you. It is the most amazing thing. If you've never done it or ever had an adjustment, it is one of the most amazing things. You can go in and be completely stressed out, anxiety ridden, get the certain adjustment, and I mean, it's just boom, you can feel it just wash off of you.
It's amazing. It's amazing. It's one of the miracles that happen in our office day in and day out, but it's not mainstream.
No.
And sometimes it can sound a little hooey-fooey, like, oh, Scott, what are you talking about? Hey, Dr. J, what do you mean people are crying on the table? They're not crying because they're in pain. They're crying because they're having an emotional release. So, Scott, let's just wrap it up. Here's the number one thing to do. Go out in your community. If you're not currently under chiropractic care, find a referral. Find somebody that is recommended by your peers to go get your spine checked. I would suggest make sure they're doing a whole orthoneuro exam. They're doing x-rays of your spine, and they're really talking to you about your holistic body and how they're going to help you go from where you are to where you would like to be, because it's all about you.
Right.
Next thing I would do is really then get studied up. If you're dealing with PTSD, get studied up on non-medicational treatments. Going to the gym, maybe not going to gym like this guy with the big arms, but going out walking in nature
just
for 30
getting
minutes.
yourself moving.
Yes.
Paying attention.
Yes.
Paying attention. Am I moving?
Yep.
Am I sedentary? And then I would put in, diet, starting looking at
Huge.
Are you consuming too much sugar? Are you consuming something that may be adding to the toxins within your
Are
body?
you stacking, and I love what you said, are you stacking the deck in your benefit, or are you stacking the deck to your detriment? We all get to decide. It's one of those things. My daughter for 4 days in a row has made chocolate chip little mini cookies with mini M&Ms, and it's like my arch nemesis. They speak to me. And for 3 days, I've went to the bag and grabbed multiple of these cookies, Scott, and I've had to eat them because they needed to be eaten. You see, that's what they're there for. So now today,
You can't be rude.
I can't be rude to the cookies. I can't be rude to my daughter.
That's
either.
right.
I gotta eat the cookies.
You gotta show support.
So it's one of these things where even today I was like, you know what? Because I felt terrible. While I'm going to bed, I had this anxiety. Well, I got that chocolate. I got that chocolate, that sugar. And then I'm waking up the last 3 days like, oh, man, I'm waking up hitting the ground running. But I had a little bit of that sluggish. So we all are in this struggle. We're trying to make better decisions in our life. So there you go today.
That's it.
Crack talk, baby. PTSD. If you're dealing with it, we are sorry about that. But you got to actively handle it, or it's going to keep getting on you like stink on it.
And if you're dealing with it and you don't want to go the medication route that scares you or whatever, here's an alternative. Here's something out there that can be a benefit, that can have a great benefit in dealing with it.
So if you love the content today, please make a comment. We'd love to hear from you. Share this, subscribe to this, like our content. We love doing this. This is why I'm one of the most passionate people about helping people go from where they are. If you don't get this on this podcast, I get amped up, taking people from where they are to, man, living this life of health and wellness and not living in pain and just hitting the lick, man. That's where I want every one of you to live. I want Scott there. I want to live there, right? Because that's happy land.
Yeah. And what is it we say? If we can help one person out there, it's worth it. If there's one view and that one view gets, and we're able to help them, it is all worth it. I would rather have like 1 million views.
We'll take it.
We'll take it, but hey, that one person, if you're watching it and we're able to help, then this is all worth it.
It's the
Love
ripple
it.
effect, Scott, and we just want to have that ripple effect. We want to touch your lives, and we want to touch all the people's lives that you are close to, because there's no use of getting information and holding on to it. Get the information and then share it with the world. That's what we're trying to do. That was the inspiration for Crack Talk. So you guys have a great one. We'll see you next week.
See you all.